Asterisk, a quiet BBC studio, stripped of distractions. No audience, no laughter to soften the moment. Just two women seated on a curved sofa beneath flawless, unforgiving lights. One accustomed to shaping narratives, the other trained to dismantle them. Meghan Markle walked in expecting a carefully managed exchange. Victoria Derbyshire arrived with notes, timelines, and a single rule. If an answer didn't align with the record, she would ask again. And that night, Meghan would understand something too late. On Newsnight, there is nowhere to hide. Asterisk, the studio felt calmer than the headlines that usually surrounded it. A crescent-shaped gray sofa curved around a glossy circular table glowing faintly from beneath. Magenta light bleeding into its surface like a subtle warning. Two blue mugs sat untouched, placed with deliberate symmetry. Behind them, large screens pulsed in abstract blues and purples, the word Newsnight hovering in the center like a verdict. No audience, no applause, sign, no space to charm the room. Only cameras, microphones, and whatever version of the truth survived the night. Asterisk, Meghan sat on the left. Posture immaculate, shoulders back, chin level. She wore a cream-toned top with a clean neckline and a deep blue skirt falling neatly to her knees. Black boots anchored the look, polished and intentional. Victoria sat opposite, dressed in a crisp, white dress. Pen resting lightly in her fingers, a small stack of notes beside her. Not dramatic. Just prepared. Asterisk, the floor manager counted them in. Meghan offered a practiced half-smile toward the camera. Victoria didn't look away from her. When the red light blinked on, Victoria's voice entered the silence with calm authority.
Introducing the interview and its theme.
Meghan nodded once, accepting the framing. Asterisk, there was no audience tonight, Victoria noted. Just a conversation. Meghan replied that conversations were where truth lived, when allowed to. The words were soft, but sharp underneath. Victoria didn't flinch. Asterisk, she began simply asking Meghan what single misconception she would correct about herself. Meghan answered quickly that she was difficult. A label often given, she said, to women who refuse to conform. Victoria asked why it stuck. Meghan said it was useful to tabloids, to institutions, to anyone who benefited from diminishing her. Asterisk, when Victoria asked her to clarify what she meant by the institution. Meghan described a system designed to protect itself. Victoria allowed the silence to sit, then gently pressed for precision. Individuals or structures? Meghan deflected, suggesting that an obsession with precision could be a way to avoid the real point. Asterisk, Victoria responded evenly. Precision was how fairness and accountability were preserved. Meghan replied that accountability went both ways. Asterisk, Victoria then turned to Meghan's repeated claim of being silenced. Noting the apparent contradiction between that claim and her continued public presence through interviews, projects, and statements. Meghan answered calmly that speaking did not mean being heard. Context could be cut, intentions distorted, voices reduced to headlines. That, she said, was silencing. Asterisk, Victoria accepted the explanation, then moved to specifics. The British press. Meghan described coverage as cruel and targeted. Victoria acknowledged that, but asked about visibility, whether some of it was a choice that prolonged the cycle. Meghan called that framing a false equivalence that sanitized abuse. Asterisk, Victoria clarified that she was challenging narratives where contradictions appeared. Meghan corrected her, not contradictions, but complexities. Victoria replied that sometimes they were both, and tonight they would examine which applied. Asterisk, when Victoria introduced timelines, Meghan's body stiffened. Victoria explained she wanted to walk carefully through Meghan's accounts of when she struggled and when she sought help, noting that different versions had emerged over time. Meghan suggested moments were being selectively quoted. Victoria replied that this was exactly what they were there to determine. Asterisk, as the questions became more detailed, the tone cooled. Victoria referenced records and internal communications. Meghan pushed back against anonymous sources and institutional bias. Victoria stayed grounded in documentation, repeating that she wasn't assigning blame, only seeking clarity. Asterisk, they moved to finances. Meghan stated she and Harry were cut off when they stepped back. Victoria pointed out continued transitional support shown in disclosures. Meghan argued that support under pressure wasn't the same as dignified support. Victoria returned again to timelines. Asterisk, the exchange began to feel less like a conversation and more like a structured challenge. Meghan said life wasn't a spreadsheet. Victoria replied that accountability often was asterisk. When Meghan accused the interview of turning adversarial, Victoria calmly said serious claims required serious questions. Meghan argued she was being asked to perform credibility while institutions remained faceless. Victoria responded that institutions don't cry on camera, people demand that. That's why scrutiny had to be even. Asterisk, by the time they paused for a break. Meghan's composure remained intact, but the effort behind it was visible. When they returned, the studio felt colder, quieter. Asterisk, Victoria resumed by asking about responsibility and consequences. Meghan said truth had consequences, and institutions collapsing under scrutiny wasn't her fault. Victoria asked what responsibility Meghan bore if scrutiny was based on incomplete or evolving accounts. Asterisk. Meghan bristled at the implication. Victoria clarified she wasn't accusing her of lying, only noting that statements had changed. Meghan called that growth. Victoria said growth usually brought clarity. Here it had created confusion. Asterisk again, precision. Again, resistance. Asterisk, as the silence settled, it became clear this wasn't a space emotion alone could steer. This wasn't a platform built on validation. It was built on records, sequences, and unanswered questions. Asterisk. And for the first time that night, Meghan looked tired, not defeated, but aware. Asterisk, this conversation wasn't ending in comfort. It was moving toward consequence.